importance of the Homa starts with the significance of fire element in itself. And the fire has been in lot of legends across many religions, but especially in Sanatana Dharma, the Kundalini is also represented by the fire. The reason is that all other elements in the creation that is responsible for this whole giving substance to creation, they are bound by the gravity. The only one that is against the gravity and that is powerful enough to go against it is the fire, and which is also akin to the Kundalini. Kundalini, as you remember, we all have it in a subtle form in all of, everything, whether it's animates or inanimates, they all have a Kundalini, just that the one who is animated like a living beings, they are more dynamic, and there's more potential to, versus something like a stone, other thing, they also have some energy, but the fire element and the various corresponding constitution is different between a living entity and a non-living entity. So the fire is one of the predominant dynamic element out of all the five: Prithvi, which is earth, water, ether, and air, and the fifth one is a fire. So it always reminds us about that kind of potential that we can achieve within ourselves, and that's one of the main thing. And the going beyond further is there are various 13 different kinds of Agni that the Ayurveda mentions. And the first one, as moment we eat, it goes into a proper cycle. It starts with stomach and then goes further down, it gets purified by liver, and then it goes through. So the one that's the first one, the Jataragni, is what we have. Jataragni, there are various types of Jataragni, and without going to details, I say typical there are 4 types. And then we have once that fire within the stomach, or 4 types of fire takes care, it is gonna get processed further by liver, which again has called Bhutagnis, which are of 5 types. And the last one is a Dhatu, which is within our tissues. So basically, essentially what it is saying is that moment you consume some food, the fire is the one, just like when you put any item in the fire, it goes to totally annihilation. There's nothing remain, just the ashes, which is the carbon particles. It cannot disintegrate further beyond that. So that's a minimal residue we have for any creation. But in order to convert that, we need the power of fire, and which is also happening within our body to break the constituents of anything into to give us some energy, release the energy out of that physical substance, which is what is being done in this different various kinds of Agni that we harbor in our body unknowingly. And this all denotes the importance that we have for the the fire in out of all the elements. And it doesn't stop in here. There's a more detail going into Agni Purana. It talks more into, it's a very glorious account of fire's importance, and that is into more that's way beyond the scope. Continue on. So the fire is what we just acknowledged as the important element, and how is that used in our worship is what takes in the next slide in here. Is that all religions, whether it be Hinduism or Christianity or Judaism or Buddhism, so all of them, they have to have a light there. That's a minimal basic thing. Moment you say I'm gonna go to a temple, or you're gonna go to a church, or you're gonna go to a monastery, you have to see a light. That's the minimum essential custom for all religions in the world. And the reason for that is the fire is the highest representation of a divinity one can imagine. What it means is that when we see a form, or let's say if I'm seeing picture of a god or a goddess, it gets painted by one's or the painter's vision or his imagination or someone else's vision, which is fine. It is a lot better than we having no idea about how the goddess looks like. When you say god, they are called Divya Purusha. The div means the Chaitanya or the brightness, and the brightness is contained within the fire element alone. And that's why we always represent that element in one form or the other in our worship. It can be anything, whether it can be puja, or it can be or actual a big homa itself as it is, or it can be just a simple prayer. The fire is always tends to be the representative of the god, just because it has that brightness, that divya. That's why also we pray to sun in the first thing in the morning, because the sun is the everlasting fireball. Because all the power that we are getting, even the fire that, because the earth right now sustaining, is because of sun. The same power that fire has, the sun has it many-fold. And by worshipping it every day, we try to imbibe that qualities within us, and we try to remove our darkness. We try to go towards our towards our highest potential that we can, as we do every day. Look at that, how much it goes beyond just a small lamp. And the philosophy behind every small thing in our worship in Sanatana Dharma has a very deep meaning. So the best means to propitiate gods and goddesses, let's say even if you close your eyes and just do meditation, that's called Chitagni. Chit is the consciousness, and Agni. So you still invoke the Chit Agni, the consciousness, in its more minute or most subtle form when you meditate. But because of other momentum that we have, thoughts, they get clouded. So we don't have a clear vision of what we are doing. In order to make that easy, our Chitagni to continue and keep us alive and no need to take any other tools, we have to start from the basic outside world, taking all of those objects to remind us about this, what they do and how to take their essence and enhance our own life. And for that, we have various levels of puja. And we start right now with very Lagu Ganpati Puja, which is good, which is a very starting point. And slowly, as we build up, the highest form of the worship is the Yantra Puja. Who know how to worship as per the diagrammatical representation, that is considered the highest possible worship that one can do to propitiate the gods. That is more in a practical scope where anyone can do that. We don't have to go to temple. You don't have to go to any priest or anyone. You can just do at your own home without any necessary supplies that you need from other people. But then the highest, even better than that, is Homa. And but the Homa has limitations. You cannot do everywhere, anywhere. You have it takes a lot more efforts to create the fire and initiate the fire, and also keep everything safe that doesn't catch fire and everything. So there's some limitations that is not practical in every means. That's why we still have a representation of the fire element in the puja. And so the Purushcharana, we start with the japa, and as we keep doing it, as we get that mantra within us established, we try to empower it more by doing what you call as this tarapanam with the water element, and then we do with the fire element. So in that case, we progressively enhance that our oneness with the mantra. And by doing a mantra, remember, mantra is the subtler form of the god, and the fire is the more visibly subtle form of the god, in other terms, right? Because subtle you cannot really see. Mantra, of course, you can hear, but there's no thing that you can hold on to, you can't feel. But the fire element, actually, you can feel it. It's the most subtler. The light itself denotes a god. So the reason for me to mention here is that the worship, what we are doing here, when you say that I know this mantra, I own this mantra, I have authority on this mantra, and I can I can use this for my benefit and for my all benefit of the other beings in the world, or for my family. You have to make ourselves one with all of these various five elements, which is the constituents of everything in the world, right? And the last and concludes by fire, and that's the highest form we can worship. And now comes to the homa. But when you do a proper homa or agnihotra or yagna, that's when you actually use the fire as the only means of propitiating the god. So otherwise, if you go to puja, you use a lot of like flowers and you have few other things, right? But here the key element itself, at the same time we have yantra also, like if you say yantra puja or everything, yantra becomes a primary centerpiece for that ritual, right? But for homa, the fire itself becomes the centerpiece, and we invite the god or goddess to come and take place in the fire. And in the old days, it was so that the Yagna Purush, there's actually a person called Yagna Purush who used to come, and after like many days of Yagna, they wait for that person to come at the end after the conclude. And after they do Purnahoti, that's when he comes and he gives, Yagna Purusha used to give the gift that what the Yajamana. Yajamana means the owner who is sponsoring the event. So they invite the god and come and make him sit in the fire and then propitiate them with the various articles of his like. And so as such, it is considered as a mouth of the god. And there's a good video that I made. Well, I hope it's good. I can't tell myself, but there's a video on the YouTube I made last year when I went to one satsang. I'm just gonna paste it here for those of you who just joined this year. But basically, I explain in more detail why we do homa in different perspective. So back to this point. So this is the homa is considered as the mouth of the gods, where just like when you eat, it goes to our whole body, to the at the end result of that eating activity is we getting energy into each and every cell, right? So because if you don't eat, we just become sort of very weak. And similarly, similarly gods also, if you want to feed them, if you want to keep them happy, they consider as a fire as a mouth of all the gods. There's a sloka that often recited is Tvammukam sarva devanam Saptarchiha Agacha Bhagavan Agni Agneswin Sannidha Baba. So very oftenly used in Vedic rituals. So what it says is that you are the mouth of all the Sarva Devana, which is all the gods. Saptarchiha Vidmate. So you please come with your 7 tongues. He's actually portrayed with having 7 tongues. So we invite him to come. You are the mouth of the gods. You please come and open your 7 tongues. And you give us all what we are wishing for. So that's considered as the entry point for the gods. And so as you see here, the progression goes like this: Agnihotra, Homa, and Yagna. So Agnihotra is the most simplest that people do at home. It can be done every day, and homas, as we see, homa also actually you can do, but if you have a sufficient supplies and everything, you can certainly do. But Agnihotra is a lot more easier to do. It's very short. And I think if you noticed, I mentioned one of the video about the Sanatan Dharma, that the Veda Pathashala, the kids, they all do Agnihotra 3 times a day. And they have a small Havan Kund, like very small Havan Kund, and they do 3 times matching the Sandhya times. That they offer a few mantras into the fire, and they also use mostly the covering patties and very small things to keep it simple. And they offer very matter of 5 minutes into that. And that's a very shortest form of Agnihotra. And then if you take it to a homa, the homa is like something like a Rudra Homa or Chandi Homa or Gayatri Homa that lasts like couple of hours. Gayatri will take 1 hour, and Mahaganpati also takes us about an hour, depending upon how many malas you want to go. So it goes in kind of your sankalpa. How long you're going to sit with the fire is what defines whether it's Agnihotra or a Homa or a Yagna, right? So The Homa right now is what we are doing, because we have a proper way to initiate the fire. We invite, so Agnihotra doesn't involve, we only do once a time. The old days Agnihotra used to be that you always have to have the fire in the house. In the house, it always keep on. It's like akhanda deepa is what we say, right? So they always have akhanda deepa, and they take from that lamp and they continue the Agnihotra and put back. But nowadays they don't have that. But they also actually have a very unique altar setup for Agnihotra in the olden days. And even now also, if you go to some of those very old ashrams, Vedic ashrams, they still maintain this ritual. And a lot of this they do very, very unique yagnas that will that's beyond the scope. But yeah, Agnihotra is something, they have very specific vidhi and a very specific design of how to make the altar and where to keep the main fire and from where to take it and all that. So Homa is what we are doing. Homa takes is we invite the god every time we do, because we don't maintain akhanda like Agnihotra. But Homa is something that we do for that occasion to achieve a specific desired result that we all want. And there are also various formats of Homa, something called Ishti Homa, and there are some different versions of Homa. But as a general term, Homa is, or Havan is the same thing we refer to, is that where we, every time we sit, we invite the god and we do some purification, and from there we take on, and then we do the actual mantra of sankalpa, what you want to do, and then we offer all the food and everything to god to say thank you, and then we send him back. And then comes Yagna goes like days together, and it's like done much larger scale, and like a Soma Yagna, and they're very advanced yagnas that we can't possibly do. We need a lot of support from the organization to kind of provide supplies and all that. That has been there in India for long time. And actually, not only India, there are also other religions in the world. They also use homas that we don't know much, but there are some Middle East. The time when the world got attention for the Homa, everything was actually happened in Bhopal gas tragedy. As we all know, I think it was 1980s, I believe it happened, or 84, I think. So Bhopal tragedy, where the chemical gases leaked, and that led to whole city getting perished completely. All of them died, but one house was remained untouched, apparently because the person who is there, the couple or the family, they're doing everyday Agnihotra. And that became a big news in those days. And that's when the people began getting some interest in Western people, I think from France and Germany, someone, they came and they began doing some research and see, they scientifically, they try to prove what is the benefit of that. How come this one family survived when the whole city perished because of that the gas leak in the chemical factory. So I'm gonna show you briefly what the contents of it are. Where are you? So you see, this is a very kind of compilation of all this research that people done. But essentially what it comes down to is, let me show give a brief summary of that, and then I'll show the actual images from that. So what they did is they were able to isolate the environment and only be able to see what its effects are. And they found that the fumes that is generated because of the mix of all of the items that we put, and the ghee and various other ingredients, the smoke, the fumes that's coming out of the environment is really purifying the place. And they have a specific matrix. It's just not like a very kind of a generic statement or abstract say that okay, that this purify the environment. It's not like that. It's actually, they have very quantifiable results that they're able to submit to the scientific community, and where they're able to see that the fumes does purify the environment. And they also notice that when we see that we had to use this specific samagri, like the black sesame seeds and like so on and so forth, which I'm going to mention later on, the actual items that we use. they also are able to verify, for example, using ghee versus not using ghee, or for example, for another thing like using the right ingredients, or they even used in copper versus non-copper. So all of these that we used, they were able to test it individually, and they were able to have a tangible result that they actually do make some difference. And that's all in the paper. I can drop it in the later on Telegram, so anyone who has interest can go over that. It's actually a compilation of various different papers about the Agnihotra, which is same thing as Homa, anything to do with fire element. They listed all the benefits of that to the environment and everything. And they also found that the plants the growth has been very much enhanced. The environment, after getting purified, the plants have been growing very good compared to. So basically what they did, they have one room with this setup, which is where they have all the Agnihotra going on. The other room, they have a regular, just normal life, nothing much, just a regular day. And they compared the metrics, how the plants are growing, how the air purification is there, how the microbes are. So they're able to statistically compare and have a concrete proof that actually, yes, these actually are making purifying the environment. And not only that, it actually also removes the microbes. And I'll show you some samples of the lab samples of how they can see the microbes quantity getting reduced as they have smoke. And they also put smoke from regular pollution versus smoke from the Homa. They still have a difference apparently. And and the other one is the Homa ash. That remember, like we consider it's very good to put the ash on the tilak. So they even are able to get that ash is very purifying element, because it's just not carbon, but also has some other ingredients that makes it more very beneficial factor to various other things. And that's all mentioned in that paper. So those of you who have interest, you can get into that. So what I was trying to say is that all of these have been tangible proofs that has been verified, and it's not just a myth the same because my father told me to do it, so I'll just do it. That's fine too. That's actually very easy if you have a faith on ancestors. But if you don't, then you have a second option, which is the scientific research to back up all all this supposedly benefits. And I'm gonna drop where is the document? Just here. Yeah. So I think you all can see this. So I'm just gonna expand this. This has a lot pretty. They even did a test on the Swami Yaga. You can see that they have a very statistical measurement of how the microbes were differentiating whether with and without that yaga. And they have very raw data. They can compare the bottles, and they did with and without the metal containers, and they use copper metals. And there's one location, so you can see the fungal growth also, like from the soil they used with the ashes and without the ashes. They also measured the quantity of the purification, and you can see the bacteria cells that were obtained using the specific agar. That's from the ashes. And you can see the leaves, the growth of the leaves here, and how they are varying between in a room with the Homa and without the Homa. And so yeah, I think this is this is the one. So it actually has about 70 pages or so. So certainly any of you who have interest can certainly go through that to your to as much as your time allows. And it's I can see that this is actually what I was talking about earlier, is that actually they can specifically measure the effects of the Agnihotra humes. They can see the microbial count in the surrounding air when they had this thing. And not only that, and look at that, they even tried with the mantra and without mantra. That's very interesting too. So there's just not only this, so one would say, why to even use mantra, right? Because we have, if the fire is so powerful, just offer the ghee and samagri, into that havan, and that will make everything what we know it. But apparently, even with mantra and without mantra, and the time also made difference. Sunrise and sunset, and without or with. So basically, they tried everything. They tried with polished and unpolished. So they basically is all like various different experiments that they have done to study the effects of Agnihotra. And you can see the purification of the water, the effect of ash on the purification of water, and the bacterial pathogenicity, and a genetic chemical toxication. And seed germination also gets pretty good when they have what you call as this, when they use this Homa ash. So this is the first set of experiments is for the Agnihotra fumes. The second one is for the ash alone, which is the end result of a Homa. And the last one is the various different components of Agnihotra. One is that in the time aspect. So when what time is good, they were able to see which time is better, which is not, which is actually, as you see, it's no surprising, it's actually matching with Sandhya timing. Sandhya, the 3 Sandhyas that we have, it's matching the timing. They did the between the sunrise, sunset, and all that. And with mantra and without mantra, they also had a chance to test that. And the rice also, with brown rice and the polished rice. And remember, we always use brown rice. I mean, the chaff, with the chaff, not without the chaff. So, and the ghee also. So they also tried the cow ghee versus a buffalo ghee. Even that also made apparently a difference for them. And when they use, remember, I keep saying you all to keep bugging you, please use the proper utensils, not just use any iron or steel. So you can see the effect of copper pot versus a steel pot of same size and same shape, So it was very interesting and thorough research has been done.